Hey, my friend, in this lesson, I'm going to analyze what makes the melody of Bridge Over Troubled Water by Simon and Garfunkel iconic. And just before getting started, make sure to check out my free course, Melodic Foundations, first link in the description box. It's a free 45 minutes online course that shows you how to target the chord tones and a foolproof way to write beautiful and simple melodies on guitar. So check it out. So Bridge Over Troubled Water is in the key of E flat. And the melody in the chorus goes like this. Like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down. So people are going to destroy me in the comments right now, but I'm going to say that the melody itself is nothing special. It's just walking down the E flat major scale. Right? Just walking down the scale, there is no recognizable motif, there is no expressive leap of a note or anything, but we should never judge a melody by itself. It's always in relation to the harmony, in relation to the chords, and that's where Simon and Garfunkel, they shine. It's the choice of chords. They add so many chords outside the key to make each of these notes shine and have a different color than just sounding like it's an E flat major scale that we go down, right? So we're gonna analyze what are the chords, right? So first of all, in the verse, it really sits the song in the key of E flat, right? When you're weary, feeling small, when tears are in your eyes. So we're clearly in the key of E flat because we stay in E flat, which is the root chord, and then A flat, which is the 4, right? 1, 4, 1. There is just one chord outside the key, the flat 7, which is D flat, but it's super common in rock music, right? Right? So we still feel a lot cemented into the key of E flat. And then they're going to throw so many accidentals in the chords left and right, up and down during the chorus to give life to each of the notes of the melody, right? I'm picturing someone crossing the street and then we have cars going vroom, vroom, and we still keep walking and somehow we make it to the other side unscathed and alive. It's the same thing with the melody right here. We go down the E flat major scale with tons of chords outside the key, but somehow we never land on wrong notes or notes that sound out of place, right? So the chords in the chorus are So I'm going to tell you when the chords are inside or outside the key, right? Outside, inside. Outside, inside. Outside, inside. Outside, inside. So technically, each time they play a chord in the key, it's followed by a chord outside the key that's going to add many, many colors to the melody. So it's always secondary dominant chords, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. But first of all, the melody starts like this. Like a bridge. So it's like the first 3 notes of the E flat major scale, right? 3, 2, 1. So when your melodic movement starts like this at the beginning of the chorus, it's a good idea to not play the root chord at the same time, right? Just imagine if the song went like this. Like a bridge. It's like, right, where do we go from here, right? So by choosing a chord that's different than the root chord, it gives a flow to your melody. Like a bridge. So they chose A flat, which is a 4 chord in the key. And then it gives a flow because we want to go somewhere else from that point, right? It's the same thing that I talked about in my lesson on Hallelujah from Leonard Cohen, right? Instead of doing Hallelujah, which is like, ugh, where do we go? Right? They go hallelujah, which is another chord that's not the root chord, but fits with the note that we're playing. It's the same principle right here. Like a bridge gives a great flow. And to give even more emphasis on that A flat chord, they played its secondary dominant. So a secondary dominant is the dominant chord of a chord that's not your root chord. So the dominant chord of A flat is E flat dominant 7. But in the key of E flat, it's supposed to be an E flat major 7 with a D natural in the middle, but instead we're playing an E flat dominant 7 with a D flat. But since the melody is never getting close to the D, or not playing the D note, it doesn't matter if we have an accidental of a D flat. Like a bridge, because we're not touching that chord, or that note rather, right? And then what's even better is that on the A flat chord, we land on the 5th of that chord, and then we immediately proceed to play the D natural. But we just heard the D flat before, right? So we have that inside our head. La la la, over, and then we play the D natural. So the crossing of the D flat and the D natural that are so close together makes that note jump in the melody, even though it's in the key technically, right? Like a bridge, oh, that's so colorful, even if it's inside the key, because we just heard that before, right? Oh, and then we expect this to be a passing tone, right? So we play the 5th of the A flat chord, the passing note, and we want it to resolve on the 3rd of that chord, right? We hear that all the time, but instead of doing that, they give us something totally different. Wow, where does that chord come from? It's totally outside the key, but we still hear the note C that we wanted, right? Ta-da-da, but it's just totally a different chord than we expected, right? So that's an F sharp diminished chord with a bass of A. And it still resolves great to the E flat chord after it, right? Like a bridge over. That's what I mean. We keep using the good old E flat major scale, but we land on chords that make it super tense and colorful at the same time. And then we land on E flat, but we kind of use a suspension. We stay on the note C. And then we resolve, right? So that's the 6 to the 5 on the E flat chord, right? 6, 5, 6, 5. So using suspensions or appoggiaturas on your melodies is always a great move to make them sound beautiful, right? And then we use another the secondary dominant chord, right? So we have water on the C chord, and usually in the key it's supposed to be a C minor 7. So we highlight the 5th and the flat 7 of that chord, right? Water. But instead of playing a minor chord, we play a suspended 4, sus4, to a dominant 7, right? And once again, the melody plays here, so it avoids the accidentals of the added chords outside the key, right? Which is super nice, super well crafted. So that is the dominant chord of the 2 chord, F minor. But the problem is that we don't resolve there. We resolve on A flat, and it makes sense when you analyze it because F minor and A flat are relative chords. They share almost exactly the same notes, and they share exactly the same key also. right? So each time that you have a chord that's major and you go 3 frets down and it's a minor chord, it means they are relative chords. So it's kind of a deceptive cadence where you expect to resolve on F minor, but instead you resolve on its relative chord, which works really great, right? So, water, I will. So now we highlight the 3rd and the 5th of the chord. And we have another chord outside the key, which is G dominant 7. So now it's the 5th chord of the 6th chord. So we played the 5th chord of the 4 chord. We've played the 5th chord of the 2 chord, and now we play the 5th chord of the 6th chord. So lots of secondary dominance everywhere right here. And what I like is that the melody lands on the flat 7, right, which makes it a dominant chord. And the root before going to the minor 3rd of the C minor, right? So I will lay me down, which is super, super colorful. And not only that, but they keep exactly the same movement, but they play different chords the second time, right? Lay me down. So the second time instead, it's I will lay me down. So now we're playing B flat dominant 7, which is the real dominant chord of that key, resolving to home, right? To our root chord of E flat major. And it works to keep the same movement because once again, it's a relation of relative chords. We have B flat major to E flat, but we also have G to C minor, and E flat major and C minor are relative keys and relative chords, right? You remember major chord, 3 frets down, minor chord, and that's your relative chord. So it works to keep the same melodic movement. Lay me down, right? Both on these, it's going to work on both. So you can utilize the relative keys a lot to kind of use the same melodic movements, but make it sound different in the melody, right? So you have lots of chords outside the key and it makes it beautiful. If you enjoyed this lesson and you want to go further with me once again, you can check out my free mini course, Melodic Foundations. I'm going to help you in 45 minutes only to target the chord tones easily by using a couple of visualization techniques and a foolproof method to write beautiful melodies on guitar and be a great melodic writer. So it's free. Why not? Just click on the first link in the description box below and check it out. It was my pleasure. Until next time, my friend, au revoir.